we've spoken to a number of different organisations, whether that be trade associations, the BBC themselves, we spoke to now, universities, individual businesses, just to really give an understanding, or our understanding, of what the implications of Brexit may or may not be. As you understand, they change every minute of every day, depending on the latest bit of information we got through. And the certain areas that we've been focusing on are areas such as supply chain management, the length of the supply chain, transit times. We've been asked to look at cash flow, stockpiling and stock management. We've had a look at customs and customs entries and the implication of that, and tariff codes, etc., etc. So depending on who the bodies are that we're talking to, we try and give them an indication of what may affect their business. So if I take each of those in order, certainly the supply chain will be the key one. So if you're importing or exporting goods to or from Europe, predominantly that's done by mainland road, and that there will be some implications in terms of potential delays at the port. So what we've asked clients to do, and what we've tried to investigate, is options for modal shift. And by modal shift I mean look at different modes of getting goods to or from Europe as opposed to the historic use of road. That will include and can include things like short sea ferry operations, air freight, although incredibly expensive solution, but a solution nevertheless. And we can look at areas like trains and short feeder vessels to and from the southern Europe. So there are plenty of options open to us. But that lends itself then towards stockpiling and stock management. What we have done is try to convince people that you don't need to have quite as much stock as a lot of our clients think they do, and depending on where you're sourcing goods from, that will impact on what you should hold in terms of stock. Historically, the industry and most of our clients have gone to a more just-in-time management program, where so stock levels have been quite low, just to feed production and manufacturing lines. What we're suggesting is you probably do need to extend that to some degree, but certainly not to the level where you need to, as some of our clients have done, double their stock holding. The other thing that lends itself to do is looking at procurement functions. So where you're currently sourcing goods, normally raw materials, from mainland Europe, you can look at alternative options. So whether that be from the Far East and from the US or from the UK. If it's Far East and US, then what you have is got shipping requirements into the south coast, predominantly Southampton being biased, but you can move goods into Southampton with very little impact. So there's not any significant shift. You'll have a customs entry element, but you have a lot and longer transit times, but you can also then enjoy normally slightly cheaper material costs. So we can weigh those two things up for people, and again it's around managing transit times for just-in-time deliveries. So there are a number of options open on that side. The one thing I would say with people need to take in consideration is cash flow. So if you are ordering goods and there's 8, 10, 12 week lead times, you normally have to purchase those goods from the point that they sell. So there are impacts on cash flow. That can also be affected by things like having customs bonded facilities, which we currently operate and a number of our competitors do. And I know the government and Southampton are looking at the potential for a free port within Southampton, which again will extend the ability to store goods with duty and VAT suspended. So that's an option open to us, either through procurement and or through modes of transport. There are a number of things. If you are a manufacturer or a producer or seller of goods in the UK, there are a number of things that you need to think about. So firstly, where do you procure your goods, whether it's raw material and or where you sell your goods to or from. What you need to understand the supply chain process, so the length of transit time either in or out, and whether you have another mode of transport that you could use to get in or out, and really need to understand whether the mode of transport, the disproportionate cost for that, some will increase like air freight, some will reduce like sea freight, whether that can be offset with the transit time. So they're questions that you should be asking your supply chain teams as to what they can and can't do. If you're currently sourcing goods from Europe, what we need to do is understand the tariff codes and therefore the duty and VAT that's owed on those goods. And again, I would suggest you talk to whoever your freight forwarder is, and they can give you some advice as to what that potential potentially looks like. But right now, we don't know what tariff codes we're going to be using, but that will have an implication on what you do. I would also suggest you look at your current stock holding. So if it's again for export, we need to look at the additional transit times, whether you look at storing goods offsite, onsite, whether you look at doing it from the point of entry or point of exit, i.e. the port rather than the manufacturing unit. So they're all questions that you could ask yourselves as a current operating centre. What's the best use of logistics in terms of managing your supply chain? Brexit is quite scary, but I do think it presents a lot of opportunities for businesses, certainly in the south, because a lot of mainland Europe is fed from the east coast ports. So I think that will give us an opportunity as a south coast port to look at procurement around, Far East and US, which Southampton's an incredibly strong port for. I think it creates opportunities in terms of people that are proactive, manage their supply chains better, manage how they manage their inventory better, will give them a commercial advantage over people that don't. So for me, I would suggest and strongly advise that people take it as an opportunity to review what they do and how they do it, and from that I think you'll gain a commercial advantage.